I'm Dr. Shirley Mcilvenny, MD, an experienced medical practitioner and professor who's been working in integrative medicine for over 20 years. Today I want to talk to you about a subject that's close to my heart: mold illness and chronic inflammatory response syndrome, or CIRS. I'm going to show you that what you suspect about your health is probably right. You know you've got symptoms which don't add up, and there's something going on, you're just not sure what. It doesn't matter if someone has told you there's nothing wrong. Just because you don't have a major disease or been given a diagnosis doesn't mean that you're totally well either. If you have fatigue, muscle aches, fibromyalgia and a host of other symptoms, which we'll talk about later, then you could very well be suffering from CIRS due to mold or another source of inflammation or infection. Just keep listening to the end of the webinar, because I will be giving you important information about how we can go about finding out exactly what's wrong and how we can fix this together. You see, I know how you feel. I was ill for a long time before I realised what was going on. Doctors don't get sick, or so we like to think. But I was tired, achy, putting on weight, brain fog and a lot of other symptoms that eventually I couldn't ignore. I thought it was normal to feel completely worn out after work. My upper arms and legs would start aching about 6 p.m. as soon as I got home from the clinic. Little did I know that home was the cause of my problems. I would feel tired and burnt out and would eat and eat to try and get some energy into my system. Then a friend became ill, and looking at mold illness was part of the possible diagnosis. Suddenly I felt that the scales had been lifted from my eyes. As I discussed the symptoms with another expert, I realised all along that I'd been having the same strange feelings, like lots of electric shocks, having to get up a lot at night to pee, strange headaches in the middle of the night, and red itchy eyes all the time. Then I ran through a few important tests, and yes, every one of them came up positive for mold and CIRS. I rushed home and started reading up all I could about the disease and how to fix it. How could I have been so stupid not to see it all before? It had crept up slowly. I just didn't realise what was going on. I knew that we'd had a water leak problem in a bedroom at one time, but it had stopped after a minor fix, or so we thought. And as I ran through the possible places we could have mould in the home, a cold sweat ran down my back. And I thought of my daughter. I had watched her really struggle recently too. She would just go to work, come home and sleep for hours and hours. She never much complained about anything, but just became more and more of a hermit. Only now did it dawn on me that she could have the same problem, and with that realisation came the guilt. I felt I'd let her down, not picking up on the cues and not helping her when she needed it most. So I've made it my mission to get to know everything there was to know about this condition, learn from the experts, and then help other people like you and me and my daughter finally get well. I want to help you understand how mold, other organisms and toxins cause the problem, how you can recognise it, what testing you can ask for, and what you can do to fix things. I'm handing control back to you. Now, I want to make it absolutely clear for everyone, this webinar is not a medical consultation, although I will be able to offer that later on in the session. This is just purely information so that you can decide if this fits with what you're experiencing and if you want to take it further, so you can make an informed decision. I think that's really important, that patients feel they've got access to all the information they need so that we can work together side by side to get them as healthy as they can possibly be. So if you're ready to take action and empower yourself, then let's get started. In this session, what we're going to cover are: what are the symptoms of mold illness? Could they be caused by other organisms and toxins? Testing for mold illness and treatment for CIRS. So what are the symptoms of mold illness? There are 37 symptoms in 13 different clusters, and they're very varied and come from different parts of the body, and often people have more than 20. Dr. Richie Schumacher, who's an expert, has broken them down into 13 clusters, and he recommends that if you have symptoms from at least 6 clusters, then you should be tested for mold biotoxin and CIRS. And about symptoms from 8 clusters is consistent with illness, and often people have symptoms from 10 different clusters. Now, this is just a summary of all the different types of symptoms that people can experience. So you see in the first box, we have fatigue and weakness, and then a lot of different brain symptoms like difficulty concentrating, confusion, decreased assimilation of knowledge, so that's not being able to learn new stuff, disorientation, memory impairment, mood swings, and decreased word finding. This is very specific for mold illness, where you can't think of the names of things, you can't think of the names of people. Then there's more general pains and aches. So aches, headaches, light sensitivity, ice pick pain, unusual skin sensitivity, tingling, numbness, joint pain, stiffness in the morning, and cramps. There are a few eye symptoms, so red eyes, tearing and itching eyes, and blurred vision. And then ear, nose and throat and lungs, so shortness of breath, sinus congestion and cough. Static shocks, excessive thirst and increased urinary frequency. So this is where the mold illness affects a hormone in your kidneys called ADH, antidiuretic hormone, much the same way as when you drink alcohol. So you get loss of fluid from the kidneys. It's not recollected and put back into the body. So you pee out a lot of urine, so you get increased urinary frequency, and then because you're dehydrated, you get a lot of thirst. And at the same time, you have an abnormality in electrolytes, so you get a lot of static electric shocks, and that's quite common symptom of CIRS. People often get night sweats or difficulty regulating body temperature. So 1 minute you're hot, the next minute you're cold. Sometimes people get vertigo. Then they get some gut symptoms, metallic taste in the mouth, abdominal pain and diarrhea, because you get leaky gut. So you get some gut symptoms. You also get appetite swings and weight gain. So weight gain that doesn't come off with normal dieting and exercise. The brain symptoms are because you get inflammation in the brain and you get swelling and then decay of certain parts of the brain, what we call atrophy. Luckily, this is reversible once you get treatment, but there could be people who are thinking, well, I've got dementia or Alzheimer's, but actually what's going on is they've got inflammation from a source like mold or other infections that we're going to talk about later. So you can see there's many, many different symptoms. Now, you could have just one of these symptoms, for example, shortness of breath. And shortness of breath could be caused by many, many different things, from heart disease, lung disease, all sorts of things. So just because you get shortness of breath doesn't mean that you have mold illness or CIRS. It really needs an expert practitioner to put all the symptoms together and work out what's going on and do the appropriate testing. If you just have one symptom here and there, that doesn't mean you have mold illness. It's the whole picture put together and looking for the reasons why CIRS has caused the inflammation and how it's producing the symptoms. So that's why you need an expert to help you. Now, could it be caused by other organisms or toxins? Well, yes, of course. There are other things that can cause inflammation too that are not to do with mold. So tick bites, They can often cause infection. So Lyme disease is one where people get from tick bites, particularly in America. There's some evidence that in Australia we have some Lyme disease now too. Heavy metal exposure, particularly things like mercury, overexposure to plastics and herbicides and pesticides, so anything that's in the group of organophosphates. So these can all cause toxicity and similar symptoms. So if you've got heavy exposure to any of these things, then you may be getting chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So it depends on your exposure, whether it's due to your occupation or perhaps a hobby like golf, where a lot of the golf courses are very heavily sprayed with organophosphates and people can react to them. Whether you're exposed to heavy metals such as mercury or other heavy metals like arsenic and cesium and cigarette smoke and other forms of pollution. So there's a lot of things to consider in mold illness, and that's why putting everything together in your lifestyle and getting an experienced practitioner to take a good history from you is really, really important. Now, in testing for mold illness, we look for the presence of mold or any other toxin that we've just talked about, the presence of inflammation, a genetic vulnerability, because there are some gene types that are more common in people who react to mold. So nearly all of us are exposed to mold in some form or other. It's ubiquitous. Mold grows everywhere in the world and it's been around for a long, long time. But what we think happens is that about 25% of the population can't tolerate being in close proximity with mold, and it creates a lot of inflammation because you don't have the genetic makeup to get rid of it easily from your body. So it hangs around in certain parts of your body and creates a lot of inflammation, and that's what gives you the symptoms and the illness. It can also have an effect on hormone levels. So it can affect your sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone and make those imbalanced. It can also affect other hormones, energy hormones like cortisol and DHEA and ACTH, which stimulates you to make cortisol and DHEA. You want to have those levels checked, and you also want an experienced practitioner discussing with you the effect on your hormones and what you can do about it. And then we look for evidence of inflammation, and it comes in various forms. So we measure some of these chemicals and hormones, which I just mentioned on the right hand side of the slide. So VIP is a common hormone that is low in mold illness, or CIRS, so vasoactive intestinal polypeptide. And it has various functions over the body, and it's also associated with another hormone called MSH, or melanocyte stimulating hormone. And both these hormones are involved in libido, in sleep patterns, in energy production, all sorts of functions, normal functions in the body. So when your VIP is low, then it creates a lot of problems with energy production and sleep. And you can actually measure this. Then MMP9, so metallomatrix peptidase 9, is a chemical that we see often when there's a lot of inflammation in the body. So this is a sign that something is creating a lot of inflammation in your immune pathways. And C4A is another immune chemical. It's part of the complement system, and it's very specifically elevated in people who have mold illness. So you get a high level of C4A if you have mold or CIRS. And then there are some other hormones that we can measure. So VEGF, TGF-B1 and C3A. So we can measure these as well. I want to discuss now with you a case study. And the case study is myself. How I had developed mold illness, or CIRS, from a water damaged building, which was my home, and how we fixed it. what happened was we had leaky pipes in the bedroom, in the master bedroom, that were coming from the ensuite shower. And you can see in this picture here that we had to actually cut out part of the wall and expose the pipes. And also it was really the waterproofing of the shower tray, the shower cubicle, that was leaking, and it was leaking into the wall for quite some time, just small amounts over a few years actually. And we never picked it up because there wasn't anything to see. There was no mold on the walls and there was nothing to see on the carpet or anything. But when we took the carpet up, we discovered that there was mold growing under the carpet. And you can see here where the wall was chronically wet and the pattern of the carpet and the lining here. This woodwork inside the wall was all mouldy and damp and had to be treated. So you can see it's been sprayed to remove the mold, and then also it was then replaced. So this was all cut out and replaced with fresh wood. And then we had the whole house treated with ozone afterwards. So there was quite a lot of work to get rid of the mold. Now our bed was just right next to this wall, and so I was sleeping right next to this moldy wall for quite a long time without realizing it, and getting constantly exposed to mold spores. We fixed the shower cubicle, we fixed all the piping, we replaced all the wood and treated the wood. Then we ozoned the whole house with ozone gas to kill any mold spores. And then we got new flooring and repainted the whole house. So it was quite an expensive exercise as well. But I was really determined to get rid of all the mold because both myself and my daughter were showing symptoms and had positive testing for CIRS. And this was my testing results. Now, we talked about complement C4A being high. That was my C4A. My leptin was very high. So normal leptin would be between 1 and 27. Mine was 97. So 3 times the upper limit of normal. My matrix metallopeptidase 9 was high as well. My VIP, which we just talked about, was low. My MSH was low, and my ADH, or sometimes it's called vasopressin, was okay, but it was a little bit lower than average. And I did have some symptoms. I was constantly running to the toilet and getting very thirsty, and also lots of headaches in the middle of the night because I was dehydrated. And you can see it's within normal limits, but it's at the lower end. So it even doesn't have to be that low to give you some symptoms. You can see this is pretty good evidence of CIRS. So high immune and inflammation markers, and then low hormones, which we know were associated with mold illness from the research that's been done by the expert Dr. Richie Schumacher. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about weight gain with CIRS because it's pretty common and lots of people don't realise that you can gain weight with mold illness or CIRS. Some people lose weight, they lose their appetite and feel nauseous and can't eat, but there's a big group of people who actually put on weight and then they can't lose it. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is because the toxins, the biotoxin from the mole itself, is stored in the fat cells. And the fat cells don't want to let it go because it's kind of quarantined there in the fat cells. So it's a bit like quarantining a virus on your computer. You want it to be stored safely and not allowed to circulate and cause damage to any internal organs. So it's stored away safely in the fat cells, and the fat cells don't want to let it go. So you have to really persuade them to open up and let their contents out. So that means regular dieting and exercise don't have much effect on your fat cells. And then the other thing that happens is leptin resistance. The inflammation interferes with your normal appetite suppression. So we make leptin in our body from the fat stores. It goes to the brain, to the hypothalamus, which is situated in the middle here. And that tells us to turn off our appetite. But when there's inflammation, the leptin doesn't get through, and so the body makes more and more and more leptin trying to send a message through to the brain, but the brain doesn't recognize it and can't hear it. And so what happens is your appetite is switched on all the time. So you want to eat all the time and you crave food. Now, during the time that we were examining our house for mould and working out if we had mould anywhere else in the house, we did a lot of testing. You can do self-home testing, but sometimes the home testing is normal and you've still got a mould problem. So you've got to be very careful about the testing, and it may be more effective to get a professional and to help you look for mould in your house. They know exactly where to look, and they also know the right methods for testing. So we did some air samples. Here's a sample taken in the shower unit, but bathrooms, kitchens, walk-in robes and paths outside, also behind furniture, especially furniture that hasn't been moved for a while. Anywhere that you haven't cleaned behind recently may be a reservoir for mould. And then we also did carpet swabs, where you swab the carpet and then put it onto the dish. With the air samples, you just leave the dish open for 45 minutes and it samples the air, and then you close the sample lid and send it off to the lab. And then with regard to treatment, the most important thing about treatment is to remove the person from the mould, and that's very important. So working out where you're getting the mould from, whether it's at home or at work or at school or some other place, it's very important to get yourself away from the mould if you're the one suffering the illness, or if it's a family member doing the same. The next principle of treatment is really removing the mould from the body. And the third principle is treating the inflammation and calming that down and calming down the immune system, and also supporting detoxification, because that's how you get rid of the mould from your body. Whenever the mould biotoxin is released from your cells, it goes to the liver and then the gallbladder and into the gut and leaves the body. Some of the biotoxins coming out of your cells will go to the kidneys to leave the body rather than the gut. But you really want to support this pathway to make sure that all of the biotoxins that are produced by the mould, or whatever the toxins are, whether it's heavy metals or pesticides or herbicides, you want to make sure these are all removed from the body in the most efficient way. That's a very important part of the treatment, is supporting this process. So by the time I'd done all the testing and initiated the treatment, I was so relieved that I'd found out what was going on. I knew there was something wrong, even though everyone said I was fine. The fatigue, the lethargy, the brain fog, the poor concentration had all improved with the treatment, and I was so relieved. And I was working on the weight gain, because that's an issue that takes a bit longer to fix. But I felt so much better just doing those simple treatments that we've talked about, and I investigated the ways in which you could make that happen. So, having described what happened to me and the research that I've done, do you get where I'm coming from? It's important to me that you understand where I'm coming from and that I have a lot of information that can help people. So, do you want to know more and take it further? Are you determined to get on top of this problem and not let it beat you? Do you want someone to hold your hand and guide you through the maze of all the symptoms, the testing and the treatment protocols, and help you decide what direction to go in? Okay, so I put together all the information in a simple course that saves you lots of time. You don't need to do all the research because I've done this work for you. My course is called Free Yourself from Mould Illness, and it will save you time, reassure you that you're on the right track, and give you information on testing and treatment that will put you back in the driving seat. Just think of how you will feel if you get on top of this. You'll be feeling wonderful, full of vitality and energy. Get rid of the aches and pains and headaches. Feel in control, that you're the leader. And you'll be able to coordinate your care from all the sources that you need, because you've got all of the information that we don't really have time to put into this presentation. So what the course includes is simple and easy to follow videos that go into a lot more detail about everything we've talked about: the symptoms, the testing, and the treatment, and the home testing as well. It gives you detailed information about the symptoms, what testing is right for you, home testing, what to do, and pitfalls to avoid, and the complete treatment protocol. And the great thing is you can watch these on your phone or listen to them anywhere. So you can have them on your phone or on your tablet or your laptop, or you can listen to them in the privacy of your home. Now, once you've signed on for the course, this also gives you access to consultations with me, which we can do by phone, online, or at my clinic. So we can do a consultation, we can do testing, a treatment protocol, and then very importantly, follow up and monitoring progress, because that is so important to make sure that you're getting better. And you'll also get access to my low inflammation eating plan free of charge. It's full of simple recipes and how-to videos. There's over 50 videos in it, and there's lots of health information about everything from eating to exercise to eating out. And if you don't cook, don't worry. There's a whole week devoted to eating out and healthy home delivery foods. This is a great extra that will give you the tools to adopt a healthy diet and have fun along the way. I want everyone to be able to get this information and get well, just like I'm doing now. That's why I've made it so affordable. Other courses and programs like this cost hundreds of dollars, much more than this course costs. So if you're willing to get off the armchair and get back in the driver's seat, then I'm committed to helping you, because we can do this together. And if you find it's not for you, no problem, email us within 7 days and we'll give you a full refund of the cost of the course. I feel so much better, and my daughter is too, now that we know what to do. We feel confident about the future, we've got more energy, the aches and pains have gone, it's all good. And now I'm ready to help you too, if you're ready to jump in and get started. Just a quick note, I can only see so many patients per day, and I have a month-long waiting list at my clinic for appointments at the moment. So don't hang around thinking about this for too long. I don't want you to have a big wait to get started treatment. By signing on for this course, you can jump the queue and get an online appointment to get testing underway as soon as possible. The sooner you get an appointment, the sooner you can get started on getting better. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can be in control of your health. So if you want to access the course and get my help, click on the link below today.